my name is Bethany Willis Hepp. I'm on faculty in the Department of Family Studies and Community Development. I teach intro-level courses and I teach our upper-level courses. There we are. And we're here today to talk about positivity and the way that we can use social psychology and positivity in the classroom with our students and with our advisees.
And I'm Kathy Burnham, and also in Family Studies.
There you go. So what's passing around now are some tongue depressors that we want you guys to pull out. Pull one, use it. We're going to reference it in a few minutes. But what we'd like to start by talking about is a little bit about values, attitudes, and beliefs, which is something that we spend a lot of time talking about in the social and behavioral sciences. And part of what can be a disconnect for students is that we typically think or expect that our values, attitudes, and beliefs should be congruent. They should be consistent. Our attitudes and our values should reflect in our behavior, but they very often don't. There's a big disconnect for students when they come to learn that there is such thing as cognitive dissonance or self-perception theory. And so one of the things that we often talk about is emotions and expressions, and how much like values, attitudes, and behaviors and beliefs, our expressions and our emotions often aren't aligned. And that as human beings, we're trained very early on, even as babies, to read nonverbal and verbal cues in conjunction with each other. And we expect that our emotions and our facial expressions should be aligned, but very often they're not. You guys don't necessarily know that I feel like I'm about to vomit all over my shoes, because hopefully my expression is giving a different vibe. So the point here is that we often think our faces are reflections of our internal emotions. But what more and more research is telling us is that we can actually control our internal emotions by putting on different faces, so to speak. And we're not pioneers in this research in any way, shape, or form. Actually, this isn't even our primary area of study. There are other researchers. This is Paul Ekman, who is literally a pioneer in social psychology, if anybody's ever taken a course. He's the one who gives us all kinds of information about the difference between real smiles and fake smiles. Can you tell which one is the real one here? Yeah, A. A is the real one, right? B is the fake one. And he gives us all kinds of information about the difference between the different facial muscles that are engaged when we smile for real. And some really interesting research that we've started using with our students was building on that idea that we have different facial expressions, and that our different facial expressions result in different physiological responses. And so this is some interesting research out of Kansas. We want you guys to take a moment and put the tongue depressors in your mouth, like Kathy is demonstrating here. Humor us for a little bit, because what this research out of Kansas is saying is that we can actually control our emotions by controlling our facial expressions. And so go ahead, please, stick the tongue depressor in your mouth and try holding it horizontally, because what you're inducing in this next 30 seconds or so is what social psychologists would call a standard smile. Not necessarily a real smile, which engages your eyes and that sort of thing, but a standard smile. And what the current research is telling us is that smiling, even fake smiling, like you're doing with the tongue depressors, can result, am I talking fast enough? Can result in the same positive benefits that real smiling does. It increases positive emotions, it reduces stress, and it changes our body's physiological response to stressful stimuli.
So what we know is that these negative emotions impair our cognitive ability. And so for students, this is really important, because when we have a student in the classroom getting ready to do a presentation, getting ready to take an exam, we need to think about this. How do we manage this? How do we approach it? We don't necessarily want to say, good luck. We want to say, you're prepared. You're ready for this. We know that you'll do well. I know that you'll do well. Because we want to give them that sense when they walk into the room, fake it till you make it, right? The fake smile, the sense of confidence. How do we use this in assignments and assessments? Well, when we give feedback, we all know you give the positive, the negative. Begin with the positive. Sometimes we get overwhelmed by that negative, but we want to start with the strengths and then work from there. How do we use this in advising? When we advise students, we may have students that have a lot of questions about where do I fit, why is it taking me so long, I'm failing a course. Again, we want to start with the strengths, not being unrealistic, but giving them that sense of confidence rather than playing into their anxiety and fear. How do we deal with this in our own departments? What do we bring to the work culture in terms of fake it till you make it? How often do we go into meetings where we don't really want to smile? And we think, okay, what can we do here? Put the tongue depressor in, put the fake smile on, because that will activate some of that change that will then enhance your cognitive ability and your emotions when you're there.
Thank you.